7. Used to at times. The special council budget workshop meeting to order. Would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. This is a hybrid meeting, which means we do have county council members who are online. Today, the majority of our county council members are online. Councilmember Cunningham is online, as well as Councilmember Dawson, Flewelling, Lawson, McEllen, and Mr. Rodman.
Mr. Hervishon is on.
And Mr. Hervishon is now, oh yeah, there he is. I did not see him up at the top. And Mr. Hervishon is online. Ms. Howard will be late, but will be joining us shortly. And the individuals in council chambers are Mr. Glover, Mr. Somerville, and myself. So we do have every member accounted for. I would ask that a member of council please offer a motion and second to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Somerville makes the motion. Mr. Glover, would you
Second. Yes.
second that? So duly motioned and seconded, and the agenda will be approved without objection, and I see no objections. I'm going to turn it over to our county administrator, who will begin the day and introduce Mr. Greenway. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, council members, members of the public, staff. We will be, over the next 3 days, portions of the next 3 days, highlighting various aspects of our county government that, and ask you all to provide us some direction on working goals for the upcoming year. Before I go into that, though, I want to say a few remarks. This is my second retreat with you all. I've been in the role here in various titles for over a year, and I'm still overwhelmed at times as to why I'm in this role, but I'm thankful every day that I'm in the role. I want to thank the staff of all the county employees who have supported me during the time that I've been here. They have done a phenomenal job this year and helping me accomplish things and helping you all accomplish things and get work done in the county. I want to thank our Deputy County Administrator, Ms. Whitney Richland, who is a great, brilliant financial mind, who does a lot to take a lot of the pressure off of me on a daily basis and assist me. I want to thank Phil, Chuck, Patrick, Jared, Dale, Audra, for all of their work during the past year of accomplishing the things that I'm getting ready to highlight. They are a great team. They're great individuals. They have a lot of skills and talents, and I enjoy working with them every day. I want to thank Chris Opart, our PIO. He was well worth the wait. He came in and immediately began to improve our relationship with the media and promoting the good things that were going on in Beaufort County. I want to thank Scott Marshall, who came in and immediately had a positive impact on our Human Resources Department. While he carries the title of Human Resources Director, he is far more than a Human Resources Director to me and this organization, and I'm very appreciative for the role that he plays and the advice that he gives me. I want to thank Rob Merchant, who filled in for me while I was doing other duties. He is a consummate professional, a great planning professional, very intelligent individual, and it was my honor and privilege to work with Chuck and the other team members who hired him recently to be the planning director for Beaufort County, and as my replacement. I could think of no one else I would rather have in that role. I want to thank Hayes, Denise, and Pinky for the awesome work that they've done in finance over the past year in helping us get things headed in the right direction there and keeping things on track that we're working well. And then last but not least, I want to thank Sarah Brock and her team. She has worked very, very hard over the last 2 years as we are working through the pandemic. She takes care of me, makes sure that I know what needs to be done for our agenda, and she does an excellent job taking care of you all. She too is a consummate professional in her role, and already, even though she's still learning and growing in the position, she's already the best council clerk that I've ever had the pleasure to work with in my 20-something years in county government. So I want to thank them. So having said that, got the weird and uncomfortable part over with for you all. I want to move into the accomplishments that we've done for the last year that we'd like to highlight for you all. Before I move into that, though, I want to show a video. That's our opening video that will kind of set the stage for what we're going to do over the next 3 days. So if you all will get that ready.
It's not showing up online.
And this is one of the things we're going to ask you all to be patient with us on, because there's always a technical glitch whenever we're doing these hybrid meetings.
Thanks for joining us on Coastal K.
Welcome to another edition of Coastline. Today we're going to be talking with Jared Fralix.
On Monday, County Administrator Eric Greenway recognized Whitney Snyder from Records Management.
So we will be continuing again with the theme this year of live, work, and play to highlight and to figure out what we need to do to continue to improve Beaufort County as a place that people live, that work, and play. And we are going to talk about all of those things over the course of the next 2.5 days through the retreat. Some of the things that we've accomplished last year that you all set for goals for us are as follows. In finance and administration, we did the implementation of the comp and classification study for the county employees that went a long way toward aligning them with what other jurisdictions are currently paying, and also did a good job of improving morale. We also combined a lot of org and object code for a cleaner general ledger. And as a result of that consolidation of many of our general ledger and object code, org code items, we reduced our general ledger by 840 line items in the course of the last year's budget. We updated the Beaufort County organizational chart that added a new ACA and reorganized the departments into more efficient services, and broke out the finance department ACA role into two parts to be just an ACA and a chief financial officer. In addition to that, we defeased a 2012 EUSDA bonds with the FY20 surplus that results in a savings of over $5.2 million in interest to the county and to the taxpayers. In public safety and public works, we completed the creation of the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund, which is working very well. We implemented the decal system at the collection centers, and though it started off to be a controversial issue that many of you received calls about, we have implemented that now, and we are getting calls from around the country, and how people are finding out about it, I do not know, to ask questions about how we did this implementation and wanting to know information about it so they can look at doing it in their jurisdictions as well. So we think that even though that was a controversial issue, it turned out to be a big success that is leading to cost savings in our waste management division. In addition to that, even though we have not adopted it yet, we completed the facilities master plan for the county to give you all guidelines as to what we need to do with regards to buildings and services and where people need to be and where those buildings should be located and what to do with existing buildings and facilities. We completed the Shanklin, which is the first and only totally dedicated EMS station here in Beaufort County. We completed that this year. And then we recently, as you all probably read in the paper, saw in the news, or heard about through our communications department, opened up the Red Barn EMS fire station, which was a joint effort between EMS and the Bluffton Fire Division. In IT and planning, we recently completed, and you are going through the adoption of the update of the comprehensive plan, which was the 10-year update as required by law. We did a special focus this year, one that we've never done in previous updates, on going out to the community and soliciting community input, especially it relates to some of our more culturally significant populations and areas of our county. We did the implementation of Microsoft 365, and for those of you that do not know what that is, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on it because I don't really know what all it is either, but it's the new email and computer system that we use here that brought into more use for us in communication through Microsoft Teams and converting our email software from Outlook to Microsoft 365. And then finally, our GIS on-site servers and Munis, which is our financial HR software that we use, have been moved to the cloud to make our IT aspects for GIS and Munis more secure and more insulated from the threat of cyber attacks. So those are the highlights. I'll ask for anyone to ask me any questions about those at this time before I move into the first part of the presentation that we have for this morning for the Regional Housing Trust Fund. So does anyone have any questions?
No, but just a comment, that's an outstanding list of things that we have done that we should be very proud of. They should be listed on our website so that as people review what we're doing today, tomorrow, and the next day, they can see several of these accomplishments.
Yeah, we'll post all of these up from each day. Appreciate that.
Any other member of council wish to make a comment? Okay, please continue.
Okay. One thing I forgot to do when I was doing my thank yous, and I regret that I have to go back and do this. Sometimes when you're trying to recognize a lot of people, you leave folks out. I failed to mention our legal department of Kurt Taylor, Tom Kevney, and Brittany Ward. They have done just a phenomenal job this year, giving me advice and giving me direction and keeping me on track and handling a lot of controversial issues in litigation and things like that for us. And I'm eternally grateful to them, not only for their professional work, but also for the personal relationship that I enjoy in working with them as well. So having said that, I'm going to shift now to the Regional Housing Trust Fund implementation.
Before you do that, just want to say thank you to you for your approach to leadership, being very inclusive as you move forward. You're not making a decision on your own, but you're relying on the professional staff that you have, and I think that's a good way to lead people. So I just want to say thank you for your leadership.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to shift now to the Regional Housing Trust Fund. This is something that was a regional initiative that included us at Jasper County, and I'll highlight the details of that as I go through this. This is a fairly lengthy presentation, and honestly will be probably not the most exciting thing that you will hear talked about over the next few days, but it's also one of the most important things that we need to talk about and we need to address. So Sarah, if you could pull up that presentation whenever you can get to it, that would be great.
And while that's being pulled up, Mr. Greenway has been going around to all of the municipalities within Beaufort County and Jasper County to present what was out of Soloco's initiation to have a regional housing trust fund.
Communications video, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip over that? Do you want to show that first? Yeah, so anyway, before we do the presentation on Regional Housing Trust Fund, we have one more video for you that you will see over the course of the next few days with the various divisions highlighting what they're working on and what their needs will be in the upcoming year. This is Communications 19.
Hello, my name is Patrick Hill, and in this segment I will be talking about the Communications and Information Technology Division. The COVID-accelerated digital transformation that the county has experienced has really changed the way that we work. We are unlikely to see such a disruption to the workforce within our lifetimes ever again, and we've used this opportunity to learn and adapt and implement new technologies that can change the way that we work. Some of the big changes we have seen is that our county's video and digital literacy has really increased. We have been able to use communication and technology to drive culture and align the organization throughout the pandemic. Now, attending and meeting virtually is socially acceptable. And as we come out of the pandemic, we are seeing this trend continue with hybrid meetings. We've been able to successfully utilize and integrate tools such as Teams, Zoom, WebEx, Cisco phone systems, etc., to enhance collaboration and increase team productivity and making the transition between the different work states seamless. Previously, much of our technology resources were static and on-site, but as we continue to move forward in this new future of work, access to information and a consistent user experience and portability have become more and more important. We are currently using the computational power and storage of the cloud to enhance the organization in exciting ways. This year, we've moved many systems to the cloud platform. Azure AD, Office 365, Intergov, Munis, SharePoint, ArcGIS, and many, many other departmental applications have been moved to the cloud and are currently up to serve digital information from many different locations to many different users. In the next fiscal year, the Mapping and Applications Department will finalize their cloud migrations by focusing on migrating and modernizing the last of our county's legacy systems. Technology is a tool to help people do something else more efficiently. And we are looking to next-gen tools to help move the county forward and to live, work, and play more effectively. And we understand that the usability of our tools is becoming more and more important. Next fiscal year, we will be creating training sessions with departments on how to fully utilize these tools in the new workplace. In the next fiscal year, the broadcast department will continue to implement the latest audio and video technologies, providing citizens with rich and engaging media consumption experience. Not only will the broadcast department continue to make improvements to our wonderful county channel and its award-winning programs, but local sports and parades are back. And the broadcast department is in demand now more than ever. The improvements and upgrades that are currently being done to our AV systems make our broadcasts even more impressive than they are today. In addition, we are utilizing new ways to engage citizens through broadcast media such as gas station TV, a WHHI broadcast station, and infomercials that will show on other networks to reach and engage more citizens. No one can argue that machine learning has vastly improved our lives. We use AI every day in cool and fantastic ways. When you are in a virtual meeting and you blur the background, that's AI. Noise cancellation, video, facial tracking, that's AI. Society is using AI, artificial intelligence, in ways we haven't before. And the county is utilizing AI to improve the way we live, work, and play. This year, the Communications and Information Division has used AI in unique and creative ways, from helping to detect digital cyber threats in our network and in our emails, and to serving up data that is the most relevant to us. The Communications Department will continue to leverage AI and machine learning with its Sprinkler platform to sift through large data sets that span many social media communities such as Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn to deliver relative and timely content to the Beaufort County citizens. The IT Systems Department will continue this AI trend by updating to next-gen firewalls, implementing a smart cloud broker system, and deploying the latest software solutions like Windows 11 and Server 2022. All of these technologies help us live, work, and play better. The Communications and Information Technology Division will continue to adapt and grow this coming fiscal year. We are willing and ready to take on new challenges, and we may fail at times, but failing is one of the ways that we learn. Ultimately, we can use technology to build a better Beaufort and to make Beaufort County a great place to live, work, and play.
A lot of information there. I will ask council again if they have any questions about any of those things we're talking about. I may have to defer to Mr. Hill if you do have any questions, because I may not know what many of those things are as well. But it's one of the great things about having the talented staff we have is I'm not required to know all of that stuff. So does anybody have any questions about any of that?
No, but once again, a comment, our technology division is light years ahead of many other organizations, so that's great news to us. I work with Patrick almost on a regular basis. This morning I sent him an email that looked suspicious to me. He investigated that email to find out, yes, it was. Actually called the company because their company email was spoofed, and so we solved the problem. So great job.
Yeah, Patrick and the team do great work. They're wonderful to work with, and I appreciate those words. So thank you very much. So we'll get the Affordable Housing Trust Fund presentation going here, and do forgive me if I misstep or misplace where I'm supposed to be in all of this, because I got a lot of stuff going through the old noggin right here. So just bear with us. So
Very apropos as to the article in the newspaper this morning about affordable housing going on in Hilton Head and the city of Beaufort.
yeah, this has a lot of interest right now. As Chairman said, I've been going around and presenting this to all the jurisdictions. I will appear before the Bluffton Town Council next week in person. I've done this presentation to Yemassee, Hardyville, the town of Hilton Head Island, today you all, and then I will do Bluffton, and I have to schedule Jasper County as well. So this was an initiative that we undertook a couple of years ago now. If you'll go to the next slide, Sarah, thank you very much. And we were successful in recommending to 8 jurisdictions a funding strategy to hire a consultant to do that work, and those 8 jurisdictions are there. They participated in helping pay the consultant for this, so there's widespread support for this initiative because it's very important. I think our future of live, work, and play and the quality of that depends upon us solving this issue, not only for the citizens, but also for the businesses that have people here that need workers. We've got to take care of the affordable housing issue. Next slide. Can I do it with this?
I'm not sure, we didn't test it.
Okay, all right, that's fine. The purpose of the study was to answer some key questions. Revenue sources, what types of revenue sources can provide a sustainable ongoing revenue source for the Regional Housing Trust Fund? I'm going to talk about that in more detail in a little bit. The uses of those funds, how will that be structured? What will be the programming that this money will be spent toward to support affordability? The fund governance and partnerships. How do you govern the fund once it is established? And what partnerships are key to establish that will ensure the overall health and sustainability of the fund moving forward? And then project criteria. What does the Regional Housing Trust Fund consider affordable? And what types of projects might be eligible for funding? And how long should those properties remain affordable? This presentation, I don't want to alarm anyone, this presentation is about 70 slides. I'm only doing about 25 of them today, so this is part one of a multi-part presentation. So I'm going to take you all today through steps 1 and 2 for establishing the Housing Trust Fund. If you could go to the next slide for me. You all already know this information because you all, and I want to commend you all on the interest that you have taken with affordable housing and the support that you have given to it, both in your interest and in your financial votes to support us pulling off affordable housing. An affordable housing trust fund is generally something that's established by the public sector to fill gaps in the supply provided by the market. So it plays a role in helping close the gaps between what the market can do and what the government should do in order to provide places to live in an affordable manner for their citizens. So there were several priorities that were established by the consultant and the steering committee. And one of those, priority number 1, which is maybe not the most important, but it is up there, and that is providing accessible, affordable housing to the region to support the workforce in the service economy, as well as others with high housing cost burdens. You can see there in line, the last 2 lines, the type of income you need in Beaufort County to afford median gross rent is $48,000. The median income you need in Jasper is $37,000. Our 60% AMI for a family of 4 is $46,500 per year. So people that are making 60% of our AMI would not be able to afford to live here in Beaufort County. And that's a key statistic that you need to keep in mind. Priority number 2 is overcoming barriers to affordable development, such as financial gaps and land availability. As we all know, there are certain things about our environment here that are impediments to affordable housing, and that's why we need to step in a big way as government. One of those is the amount of land that's available for affordable housing. We have a lot of water, small land. We have a program, which I highly support and in favor of, that allows us to buy land, to take that off the market, to restrict it from being developed in the future. That's an impediment to affordable housing. And then we have environments or areas of the county that are predominantly geared toward tourism, and because of the beauty and the aesthetics of those areas, which means land prices and housing costs are more expensive in those areas because of the vacation and tourist-related activities there. So that's one thing. Other thing is infrastructure costs, roads, water, sewer, all of those things to develop here are more costly. And then you have the impact fees that go along with that again drive up the cost of doing affordable housing. So the Regional Housing Trust Fund can help close those financing gaps related to infrastructure, land banking, other things that may need to be necessary, impact fees, and things like that that we may need to look at assisting through that program. Priority number 3, ensuring a regional approach for affordable housing that addresses the needs of each jurisdiction while meeting important strategic goals for housing location. 2 things we do not want to happen with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We do not want one area of our county or our region to become the ground for only affordable housing. That is one of the current concerns that have been voiced. So the goal is to take a balanced approach so that each jurisdiction, that the affordable housing is spread out through the region so that people are able to live closer to where they currently work and not have to travel significant distances in order to get there. The other thing that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund needs to attempt to do is that if jurisdictions are putting in money into the Regional Housing Trust Fund, they need to get a certain amount where it's advantageous for them to do so of those affordable housing projects and have that money reinvested into their community. So it's going to be a balancing act. You don't want too much, but you also don't want to ask them to contribute money and not be able to get affordable housing projects in their jurisdiction. So that's priority number 3. Priority number 4 is understanding the tools and resources available to housing trust funds through various state laws and regulations. That speaks for itself. There's plenty of people out there that operate regional housing trust funds that can do that without doing a lot of research. And then priority number 5, identify a stable and reliable dedicated revenue source. And I'm going to talk about that in a few moments. The only way the Regional Housing Trust Fund is going to have a significant impact and remain healthy and sustainable is if we as jurisdictions dedicate a reliable revenue source to carry it through, to start it, to allow it to continue to remain healthy as it grows and additional projects come online. So objectives of the study. Next slide. All right, so this is a busy slide. I'm going to talk about bullet points 1, and I'm going to talk about the last bullet point. You all can read the rest of that, and I'll pause whenever I get through. But the primary objective is to create new housing units or rehabilitate or preserve existing housing units for households at or below 120% of area median income, with a strong focus on households at or below 60% of area median income. So what does that look like in reality? Well, I told you all that 60% of AMI here in Beaufort County is $46,500. If you take 30% of that, which is what we're targeting, that people should only have to spend for housing cost as a result of that, that's for a family of 4, 46.5 is for a family of 4. You take 30% of 46.5, that equates to $13,950 a year that someone should be using for their housing costs in Beaufort County. If you divide that by 12, that results in a monthly house payment or rent payment of about $1,163 per month. $1,163 per month. So I looked this morning when I got here to work at the rent requirements here in Beaufort County, and I only found 3 apartment complexes that had rents below $1,163 per month. 3 apartment complexes countywide. And if you delved into that, the rents that are below $1,163 probably are not for anything that would support a family of 4 living there. $1,163 will buy you a house that would have a value of about $213,500. There's not many homes here in Beaufort County in this particular market that you can buy for $213,500. So right now, our affordable housing program here in Beaufort County is essentially related to manufactured housing where people already have land or have family land where they can go out and buy a home to be able to afford to live in the county. If they can't do that, then they're forced to live in other counties and commute back into Beaufort County to work. And that is not a high quality of life. They may be able to work, but they're probably not doing much living, and they're probably not doing much playing if they're having to spend a majority of their lives traveling back and forth to work and things like that. This is a problem at our very own detention center. And I will tell you, I'm going to highlight that. We require those folks to work long shifts. Many of them, because of the shortage over there, have to work back-to-back shifts. You ask an employee to work a back-to-back shift in the detention center and then to travel more than an hour home to get some rest, and then they have to get back in their car and travel back over an hour to get back to work. Doesn't leave them much time to do other things. It leads to all kinds of problems, and it is the part of our society that at least can afford to do these things, because what that does is they're spending their time trying to live and to get to and from work and to get to work. That doesn't leave any time or energy for them after work to help their kids with schoolwork, to do extra things with them, to grow their kids socially, to recreate with their kids or families. So it is highly problematic for us, and we have got to solve this particular issue here in this region if we're going to continue to be a premier place for all aspects of our economy to live, work, and play. And that is hopefully something that we're going to be able to accomplish through the Regional Housing Trust Fund. Last bullet point, and one of the key advantages, as I've told you all before, of a Regional Housing Trust Fund is to be able to leverage outside funding from banks, corporations, philanthropic institutions, federal, state, and local governments. I've told you the story many times about Greenville, and I keep repeating it because, one, I like to repeat myself over and over apparently, and two, is key for you all to understand this. Greenville made a $2 million investment in seeding their Regional Housing Trust Fund. They turned that $2 million investment into $43 million that they were able to leverage in outside funds. If we can do that here in Beaufort County, we will solve over time our affordable housing issue, but it's going to take time, and it's not going to be an overnight solution, and we may not have all the bugs worked out. One of the things that people, the public and politicians, because of the instant gratification mindset of our society now, is that, well, if you can't do everything and you can't work out all the bugs and have everything addressed whenever you start this, then we've got a problem with that. Well, you got to start somewhere, and I need you all to keep that in mind moving forward. We got to start somewhere, and we've got to build this over time. If we start somewhere, we may not have all the issues resolved or all the bugs worked out, but in 4 or 5 years, we will be standing here looking back and saying, man, we didn't have everything worked out initially, but we worked everything out over time. We trusted the professionals that we've hired to do this work, and what an impact we've had in 4 or 5 years with the Regional Housing Trust Fund once we get it set up and running. Next slide, Sarah. Let me pause right there before I move into this busy slide. Are there any questions about anything I've gone up through at this point?
Anyone have a question? Just on the, where you created the scenario that said you have to make so much money, and that equals a payment of about $1,163. That only covers your principal and interest payment on your mortgage, correct?
That's correct.
So you still have to worry about insurance,
Right.
property taxes.
Well, based on that calculation, it would take in the property taxes on the house and the insurance on the house, but it does not take into account what they may be paying in car, child care, other ancillary costs that they may have throughout the month.
Okay, so that's an important distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Love, utilities.
And that's a good point. Guess when I was looking at building a house years ago, the percentage was 25%. So you've gone up to 30%, but that's better than what some of the lenders been using over the years, 40%, and I think that's ridiculous. But so I appreciate what you're presenting. My district has a lot of heirs property, and you do know that, and so housing could be through mobile home, which basically doesn't allow you to create wealth, but it gives you a place to stay.
Right, that's right.
And so a lot of folks do not have to purchase land because they have family land they could use. However, there are other expenses that equate to housing. And one of the areas, because of the lowness of the area, is actually the septic system. You talk about sewer, and my district really do not want sewer because what sewer would do for the rural community. Is there any talk about assisting people with that septic tank issue, that they could, that somehow funding could be provided for them in those areas and stuff?
We haven't gone into that level of detail yet, but it's a key point. It's something that I've considered, because if you look at someone having to put in an engineered septic system, you're looking at double the cost.
Exactly.
So those types of things would be the types of things that I think would be eligible for the for the trust fund to help people out with. In addition to that, impact fees. We deal with, Chuck Atkinson deals with this quite a bit. For people in manufactured housing, they go out and get the manufactured house, and they come in and try to get the permit, and they're looking at, a couple extra grand in paying an impact fee if it's a new home site. They may not be prepared, may not be able to afford that. So their housing trust fund would be my vision to help provide some of those waivers and a revenue source for that.
Thank
So
you.
we don't have it totally ironed out yet.
I got you.
But it's something that's on our radar.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I heard some folks talk.
Mr. Robin was, but he's doing that.
Okay, all right. So this is a busy slide, and the only thing I'm going to illustrate about this slide is that there's going to be a lot of steps to pulling all this together. Many things will be happening before other things, and will be happening while other things are happening. You can see all the arrows on there and things like that. You don't need to worry about that. This is something that I have under control. I know what needs to be done. I'm working with other professionals who have more experience with this than I, and we will get this accomplished, hopefully within the time frame that we're going to talk about here next on the next slide.
Eric, this is Stu. If I could ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Two things. One, I do believe that the relief on the impact fees has the most significant upfront help of the affordable housing. But my question is this: I assume the numbers are based on one wage earner, and if so, if there are two wage earners, does that mean that the numbers double in terms of, let's say, going from 250 to 500,000 for a home?
Yeah, it's really based on the number of people in household, and it changes based on that. So I'm giving you the median income for a family of 4. If they have less folks in that, then it would take less income in order to have a living wage here in the county. But again, housing prices are fairly constant across the board. Whether you have one person whether you have one child or 2 or 3, you're probably going to be paying about the same amount of money for your housing cost here in Beaufort County, unless you're a single individual. So.
Thank you.
Next slide. Thank you very much. So this is the time frame of where we go for the next, until the end of next year of 2022. You can see we've done the final proposal and implementation plan, commitment to public funding sources, Q4. That's what I'm doing right now, is going around to all the jurisdiction to try to get jurisdictions to commit funding. There will be an ask coming of you here shortly in this presentation, so get ready for that. Then we have to Q1, Q3 of 2022, formalize the philanthropic partnerships. Q2 of 2022, so that'll be April, May, June of next year. Staffing the new organization, actually hiring people to operate the Regional Housing Trust Fund. And then Q4 of 2022, public launch and begin accepting applications for affordable housing projects. That is a very aggressive timeline. That means that a lot of my time over the next year, if you all are okay with that, will be dedicated to continuing to set up and work with the various jurisdictions and professionals to set up the Regional Housing Trust Fund. So you need to be aware of that I would like to establish the completion of this as one of our primary goals for 2022 and provide funding for that. So next slide. You have to pass local funding ordinances, so we'll be working with our legal team to make sure we get all of that in place for jurisdictions to consider and adopting model ordinances to go along with that through either our legal department or our consultants that we will be working with to set this up. Next slide, step 1.2. Secure Arpa funds in year one. So the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 allocated over $67 million to the Beaufort-Jasper County region. We're asking each participating jurisdiction to dedicate 3% of their individual ARPA allocation to the Regional Housing Trust Fund in year one. There is a chart that will show that exact amount coming up. Ideally, these would come from state and local recovery pool of ARPA funds, which is the most flexible pool and will allow for more streamlined financing of the Regional Housing Trust Fund. What that means in a nutshell, in layman's terms, is that ARPA carries with it a lot of regulations about what you can use the money for. Affordable housing is one of those things. We're not sure totally that ARPA can be used to seed the Regional Housing Trust Fund for affordable housing. We think we're okay with that. But if you can show a loss of revenue during the pandemic, and right now Beaufort County is showing a loss of revenue of, I believe, around $27 million of the 37 that we're getting. If you can show a loss of revenue, then those funds are pretty much free use. You do not have to do the same type of reporting requirements. You do not have to designate those funds to ARPA specified categories. You will get a full detailed presentation of ARPA and what we're planning to do with the ARPA money on Thursday or tomorrow during the finance portion of the meeting. So step 1.3, next slide. Beyond year one, we're asking for each jurisdiction to commit to a combination share of $500,000 based on population share in the second year and ongoing. So next slide, this will show you the actual numbers. So Beaufort County's numbers is the first column. Year one, 3% of our money would be $1,119,000. Hilton had 156,815. 100,056. Bluffton, that number's low. This was done on entitlement or non-entitlement communities. That's why Bluffton's number is low. We need to adjust Bluffton's number based on their population for that year one contribution, and we will work on that. You can see the rest of them. I will not go into full detail. And then you can see year 2 through 10, what our annual contribution would be based on our share of the population. So it ranges from 231 in year 2 or 232 in year 2 all the way up to 294 in year 10, giving us a total 10-year contribution of $3,475,000.
That's from Beaufort County.
That would be for the entire region, all the jurisdictions. That has all participating jurisdictions listed.
I see 7 million here, 72 million, 7 point.
What now?
I see 72.
No, your question is accurate, Mr. Glover. Over the course of the 10-year period of time, Beaufort County would supply 3.4 million.
Our portion would be 3.4. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't understand you.
And the total for the region would be the $7 million.
Okay.
From years 2 to 10, so totally it'll be about 10 million from year 1 to year 10. I believe, if my math is right here. I got a slide on that here somewhere. Next slide, Sarah. As I said before, a stable, reliable, dedicated funding source provides the Regional Housing Trust Fund with a flow of resources that can aggregate and increase over time. That's government portion of the contribution. That doesn't count what we could leverage with grants, philanthropic contributions, corporation contributions, things like that. So, and then step 1.5, next slide, talks about continuing our conversations with philanthropic and corporate partners, which is what we have to do. I won't spend a lot of time on that particular item. And then banks and corporate dollars in slide 1.6. Also will provide ancillary funding to the Regional Housing Trust Fund. Banks, corporations love this type of stuff because of the tax credits they get for doing it. This is going to be a partnership that's going to require both a public and private investment, because after all, we are doing this so that our folks that provide places to work have people, a workforce that lives near where they work, that they can pull from in order to sustain their workforce as well. So that concludes that part on the funding. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Any questions?
All right. We'll move into step 2. Developing the organization for the Regional Housing Trust Fund. We may have to develop an organization or we may not, but the one thing that we have to do is determine the 501c3 board structure. In August, SoLoco voted unanimously that each participating jurisdiction would be able to appoint one board member per jurisdiction. So that would be, if all 8 participate, then the board would be an 8-member board that would oversee and give direction to those who are operating and managing the Housing Trust Fund. Step 2.3, staffing the organization. In first years 1 through 3, we project you'll need 1 to 2 staff members, an executive director, and a project manager. And then beyond that, if you'll go to the next slide, Sarah. This is pretty much the budget that's laid out for that level of staffing the Regional Housing Trust Fund. That would, in year 1, require a budget of $256,000. In year 2, $261,000. In year 3, $268,000. And then one of the first tasks that the people that are doing the Regional Housing Trust Fund and operating it would be going out and seeking that philanthropic support. I am already meeting with individuals such as the Community Foundation of the Low Country, about the possibility of them, since they're already set up to operate a Regional Housing Trust Fund, to operate our Regional Housing Trust Fund. And since they're already staffed and programmed and have procedures in place, we may be able to shorten that year 1 through 3 budget down to something less than what's projected in that chart. That is it for affordable housing. I told you it was going to be long and possibly boring a little bit, a lot of details, a lot of facts there, a lot of financial information. I'm glad to answer any questions or listen to any comments from anyone. No, you're fine, go ahead.
What kind of resistance are you getting from the general public? Various entities, are you getting resistance from them?
I don't get resistance because here's why. This is what I explain to folks. Whenever that resistant question comes up is, not sure we want this next to our neighborhood or in our neighborhood or near us or whatever. And this is one of the things I would like for you all to consider using as a basis for responding to such questions. What we're talking about here is providing housing to people that we already allow to do some pretty significant things to us individually that we don't think about while it's happening. Okay? If you have a wreck in a vehicle, you're gonna call for officers to come out and do a report on that wreck to decide who's at fault so that you have appropriate records to deal with your insurance company. If you have a heart attack or have a medical emergency, you're gonna be driven to a hospital at a high rate of speed to get you there as quickly as possible with people that are trained in that ambulance to provide you medical attention in order to get you to the hospital. When you get to the hospital, you're gonna be put on a gurney, you're gonna be rolled into very likely an emergency room. Somebody that you do not know is gonna come in and stick an IV and start punching you with needles and running tests on you and giving you medications, waking you up at 4 o'clock in the morning to give you medications, bringing you food while you're in the hospital and things like that. You send your kids to school that are taught by teachers and teachers' assistants. You go to restaurants and you eat on plates and food that you do not know who has cooked. These are the types of the people that we're talking about providing housing for. We already allow them to do those types of things to us that are pretty significant if you think about it. But many folks think that those folks aren't able to live near where they live or could live where they live. And there's no legitimate basis for that. That's an emotional argument because after all, we're talking about providing housing to our public safety officials, to our government workers, to the people that work in our hospital, to our teachers, and all of those folks that help our community be a great place to live, work, and play. And we've got to address it.
I like the approach.
Absolutely.
Just, I've thought about this quite a bit. There are a lot of people that are here now doing the things that you just described, that are serving us in many different ways, like you just described, and that need housing assistance. They need affordable housing. I'm not sure how they're living right now, but they're in need of affordable housing. What's to prevent people who are not here now to see this program from just flooding our area and saying, sign me up. I want one of those subsidized houses. I want one of those affordable houses. And to the exclusion of the people that are already here doing that work and have been doing that work for a long time. It seems to me that there's going to be a meeting of those two groups of individuals because the word's going to get out. A lot of people would love to move to Beaufort for whatever reason and can't because it's not affordable for them. They don't have jobs, so they're going to compete with people who are already here doing these things, and somebody's going to have to sort that out. Somebody's going to have to pick winners and losers.
That's going to be a part of the balance that I talk about with this operating. It's a legitimate concern, and that's why I said earlier we need to adopt a balanced approach. That's something that I hadn't really thought about. I'm glad you put it on my radar so that I can be mindful of that as I continue to talk with these folks that are going to be standing up this organization and working on that. It needs to be some sort of equitable and fair distribution for us to be able to provide housing. A lot of the folks that do these jobs now, you got to keep in mind, they don't live in Beaufort County. They're commuting from outside of the county coming in here. Some of them are fortunate enough to have affordable housing here in the county, and that's great. And we can do things to assist them with rehabs and things like that to keep them in that housing as necessary. And that's something the Regional Housing Trust Fund can do. So yeah, hopefully those that are living outside of the county, working in the county now, will have opportunities to move closer to where they work so that they can continue to work in those locations and actually live here in the county. It would be one counter argument to that, but it's something that we need to
I'm not thinking about people who live in surrounding counties. I'm talking about people who live in Alaska or California or New York.
Yeah.
That may see this as an opportunity to come and move here, and that hasn't addressed our problem at all.
I understand. Right. Yeah. It's good. It's a good point. And it's something I'll keep in mind as I move forward. All right. We can turn it over to Mr. O'Toole now that I've bored you all with affordable housing and let him come up and talk about exciting economic development stuff that also moves us into working.
Before you leave.
Yes, sir.
What is the next step for county council?
We will have to talk about, and at some point today, you all will need to give us directions whether or not you want us to continue to work with this. If you like the funding strategy that's proposed with year 1 and year 2 and are willing to make that commitment so we can build that into the budget and as a possible use of ARPA money in order to stand that up for our portion.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one statement before Eric slides off?
Logan, go ahead.
Yep. I do like the idea. I think there's a couple things, we're going to have to tweak as we get going. But I will be honest, this is kind of frustrating in itself when we're going to talk about building a group to help with impact fees, but we just got done raising impact fees. And we just tried to pass another tax, which raised the cost of living. The same argument I made before, I feel like we're still in the same situation. If we're going to do it, let's do it. It drives me crazy when we're counterproductive by putting one thing in, and now we have to create a program to help funding to offset something we just put in place. And we've been talking about this for weeks with some of the other groups and municipalities. So I'm with you. I think this is a good idea. I've told you guys this before. I think we need to get some type of workforce housing here in Beaver County. I'm just saying, as we move forward as a council, I feel like we need to start thinking about these things before we start passing things that pigeonhole us and restrict us, and we have to create another group. So now we're talking about another $250,000 a year in just salaries to make up for something that we kind of put on ourselves in some ways. So it's just my own personal opinion. I could be completely wrong compared to some of you guys who might disagree, but I just want to throw that out there that if we're going to do this, let's stop putting ourselves in situations where we even have to go out of our way to create these type of groups.
Okay. I'm going to, before I turn it over to John, I'm going to let Rob Merchant come up. One of the things that we were asked to do is to speak to you all on what the comp plan has to say about the various topics that we're covering. So Rob's going to come up and do a brief 5-minute presentation about what the comp plan that you all are considering right now has to say about what we need to be doing with affordable housing and what we need to be doing with the economic development. So Rob, come on up.
Well, thank you, Eric, and Mr. Chairman, members of council. It's a privilege to be able to be here to talk about the comprehensive plan because I kind of joked as a planner, we kind of want to see the comprehensive plan as really the document that kind of guides us in our decisions, as a county. Just real briefly, kind of an elevator speech, for the comprehensive plan. I look at it as we all collectively value certain things about Beaufort County. We share certain values. We love the natural beauty of this area, the history, the quality of life. And what the comprehensive plan really is meant to do is to forge a shared vision for the county that we could all agree on. And in the dynamic environment with growth and with environmental threats and everything, what are the actions that we need to take to make sure that we're holding on to this, the county that we love? And also taking a very honest assessment of areas that we can improve on. And I would say over the 20 years that I've been here, affordable housing and economic development have been two, I would say, very complex issues in ways that we've never hit a plateau and said, well, we're there, we're perfectly happy with the economy or perfectly happy with affordable housing. And so these two chapters are very, it's very complex and they forge a very complex set of objectives. Just real briefly, if we go on to the next slide. The economy, you can move on to the next one. So we address both of these in the comprehensive plan. And our strategies for economic development are really, it's a series of strategies, but it starts with looking at what is driving our current economy and making sure that we're supporting those, but also recognizing that we need to diversify, and what steps do we need to do that. And it really is a complex equation, looking at everything from workforce, the availability of land, recruiting people to come into the region. And, John O'Toole and his agency are doing an excellent job of that. Go on to the next slide. Very closely related to the economy, as Mr. Greenway had mentioned, is affordable housing, or housing in general. If people cannot afford to live here, it begins to really affect our ability to function. And we already see that with, especially, as we've been struggling with the pandemic and, shortages of labor, and it affects everything from being able to go out to dinner, or, being able to get enough people here to teach in our schools. With affordable housing, once again, if we go on to the next slide, it is these strategies here are very general, and they're qualified with a lot of different bullets in the plan. But affordable housing is a strategy, both the location of housing, where it makes the most sense, where people need to live close to work and services, reducing regulatory barriers to affordable housing, and then ultimately aggressively pursuing housing. And that, of course, this Affordable Housing Trust Fund is a step forward in that. Just to leave you with this last slide, the comprehensive plan, has specific actions, and over the next year, we anticipate some of these that we'll be looking at with the economy, and I think that John O'Toole will be speaking about it. There's definitely an interest in pursuing acquisitions across the county for sites that are appropriate for economic development, and that's something that we anticipate working closely with their agency on. And of course, affordable housing, the main thing right now is setting up this Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But also, we intend to go through when we're going through the Community Development Code, to make sure that we're reducing regulatory barriers as much as possible, making sure that we're meeting other objectives, but also taking another look at our incentives. Right now, we have it available in one district, and we would like to expand that. So that's just giving you a kind of an overview of the plan. It's going before council, hopefully third and final reading on Monday, November 11th. And we anticipate over the next year that we'll begin implementation, at least in these two areas, for what this committee is looking at. But thank you for the opportunity, and I'll hopefully give you an overview for some of the other committees as well.
Before we get to Mr. O'Toole, I want to thank him for the working relationship that he and I have as well. He and Charlie Stone, they are phenomenal people personally, and I enjoy working with them. Before I move on, I forgot to another key person that I work with daily, and the reason I forgot her is because I consider her to be an extension of myself, because she thinks a lot for me. She takes great care of me. Whenever I talk about my role, I'm also including her in that administrator category as well. And that's my personal and very talented, very long-standing, long-lived assistant, Miss Cheryl Harris. She does a great job for me. She thinks for me. She takes care of me. She's doing things for me before I even ask her to. And I want to thank her for her service to the county and to me as the administrator, and for training me on what I need to be doing over the last year. So thank you, Cheryl. John, come on up.
I can echo what you just said, Mr. Greenway. Cheryl is one of those personal people that she keeps a low profile.
Yeah.
But her absence would mean disaster for you in this county. So I agree.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Good morning. It's a real pleasure, Mr. Chairman, Council. Thanks for allowing me to be with you this morning. Can I advance these slides with this?
See if it works. Point it over here, son.
Where do I point it at?
Over here, this system. No.
Okay, we'll get through it. We'll get through it. I just to complement what Eric said and Rob said as well. We're really pleased to have a nice working relationship with the county and its staff. Through my comments today, in particular, a lot of the good work we get done is with the guidance of legal and also Jared and the engineering folks. So we're really pleased. As I look at economic development, and Eric, it's nice Eric described his own on housing as being long and dull and ours as being as exciting, but he cautioned me to be brief so that we could get into dialogue. So I will try not to filibuster. I'll try to whip through a lot of slides very quickly, and we can advance to the next slide. What I will say, though, is that I look at economic development as just a spoke in a wheel, and education is probably the spoke I see right at 12 o'clock. I see environment, the critical importance of environment. I think the good work that Charlie Stone and I and the council have gotten done so far without ending up in the crosshairs of environmentalists, of which I consider myself one, is paramount to our success as a group. Economic development, obviously, and we'll talk about those results, what it can do for the families, the people who live here today, and those who will be relocating here. As you look at the census and the growth in the area, not just Beaufort County, but the larger region, we'll expect that to continue. The two other spokes are workforce being available, and then workforce housing, and then the last is transportation. And if all those spokes are strong, it takes some of the stress off the other spoke. So with that, we'll kind of get through these slides fairly quickly. We have a strong board of directors, and hopefully council members understand that anytime a council member attends our meeting, they're included as a full-fledged board member. So you're always welcome to attend our meetings. They are the third Thursday of each month. Next slide. I do have a little bit of show and tell. Quite pleased. We were last month, we were given a gold award for equity and inclusion, which I think is a great reflection on the county. A project that included the Gullah Farmers Co-op. And doing okay, York?
Yeah.
Okay. I was in speech till 5th grade, so be patient with me. But we worked with the Gullah Farmers Co-op and also the Rolfe family for the Low Country Market. Of all the projects within the international economic development community, we were cited as the best project in show, which I hope council members take pride in this. But for Beaufort County, which had struggled for the last 20 years to have some results in economic development, and then to be, and we can go to the next slide, to be recognized both for equity and inclusion, which is a wonderful reflection on our county, kind of bridging that gap with people with land and the ability to do great things with their farms, and then bridge that with affluent social entrepreneurs that want to do something to help people along the lines of don't give people fish, but teach them how to fish. And so that was a great project. Our chairperson, Ashley Feaster, was at the conference with us. If you do know Ashley, keep her and her family in your prayers. Her grandmother passed away yesterday morning, so if you're thoughtful and would send her a note, that would be nice. Next slide. Our vision is to be collaborative, and I appreciate the comments of the administrator this morning. To be collaborative, you have to understand all the people who contribute to your success. And if you hear me say I, it's a big mistake. It's got to be us working together. And so our role is not to be the attention getter, but to be that group that facilitates success. Our passion, both Charlie Stone and my passion, is to attract investments. We keep track, we keep score, and then the impact that it has on people's lives. And I can tell you, walking through Geismar, for example, a project done before we got here, they're looking at expanding that plant as I stand before you today. But walking through that plant and asking, while Al Reynolds, the general manager, was talking to one of our prospect companies, talking to one of his line workers about what it meant to his life and how at 50 he bought his first house and was planning, this is pre-COVID, his first cruise. But to see the impact that it has in people's lives. Next slide. They're saying, this is John talking quick, you better get through this. Our targeted industries, and Eric and I do enjoy teasing each other while being effective, but our targeted industries were approved by the 400 plus people who were at our last Converge Summit. But we constantly are trying to improve these. Things that we're going to be focusing on a little bit more out of this list is regional headquarters, back office operations, which we see a lot of possibilities for in the community. Next slide. I'll try not to read all these slides, but, and click again, I'm sorry. I try to take the build off this. Click one more time, thank you. And it's important, and as I was doing this last night, I added the Low Country Council of Governments, and just so many partners add up to our success. Charlie and I are just two people, but whether it's the energy companies contributing tax credits, and we have probably secured over $1 million of those in the last $1 million worth in the last 4 years. And again, legal and engineering for helping us work through these projects that are complicated because we have to use the UTCs before we transfer the property to a private investor. Next slide. We do keep score, and thanks for zooming in. I appreciate it. But I usually do this on my own slide, and I can zoom in. We keep track of investments. We have a pretty good pipeline. We'll be over 200. We're right at 4 years doing this. I would say the first 3 months we're kind of setting up bank accounts and meeting lots and lots of people. But at this point, we're over $200 million in investments. The job numbers is over 1,000. And if you zoom into that, you don't have to zoom in anymore. But if you look at the average compensation across those jobs, and we're at help me out. I don't want to tell a fib here. It varies. It looks like we're at 45,000. So if you get two incomes like that in a household, people are doing a lot better in Beaufort County. Next slide. And we work really well with commerce. We did this recently as part of our private fundraising efforts. I know Councilman Flewellen, we were telling him about this pre-COVID, but we're biting back into the private fundraising currently. The Clemson economist ran it through their models. $3.3 billion worth of impact, not quite where that's over 7 years. So it's not quite where your hospitality and tourism folks are or the defense industry for this county. But in terms of diversifying the economy in the county, we're making progress. Over $670 million in salary, 1,800 jobs, the multiplier effect per year, and municipal or county revenues nearing $17 million. Next slide. I'll go through these very, very quickly, so stay ready, Sarah. We're going to go quick. But we have the Converge Summit. Chairman Pessimant's helped us get that established at Sun City, and it should be exciting. A larger venue, so we should be able to accommodate more folks and bring them up to speed. I do believe as part of our success is making sure people are read in and never surprised by what we're doing. Next slide. The names will be close. We called it the Converge Summit before we went out to bid and selected Convergent as our vendor for private fundraising. We've just completed a feasibility study and will actually begin probably after the new year raising money in earnest. Next slide. Just going to go through a few of these slides. The key to our success is obviously understanding why people have chosen to be here. Exhilarating environment, which I think fits in well with all the themes that were in the videos that Communications had done and the themes that the administrator covered in his presentation. But we've surveyed folks, had focus groups. These are the reasons they come here: exhilarating environment, ready and skilled workforce, the Marines being kind of our ace in the hole on that front, and unparalleled support. And Charlie Stone is sort of the poster child. We had, and we'll cover this in a second, we had a concrete company that just acquired Low Country Concrete Knights. They're planning on hiring 80 people. We had them in the Beaufort Digital Corridor conference room yesterday, and they have operations in probably 8 other locations, and we're the only county that has amassed a workforce team, and that was a comment from the company representatives yesterday. So we try to provide concierge level service. We don't try, we succeed, and Charlie's a big part of that. Next slide, thank you. Charlie was just out at the spec building. They're pouring the walls. The walls are about to go up on that building, 64,000 square feet. So that's progressing. Next building. Or next slide. This one is Mira Foods, and the key here is we're going to get into the product report, is that building became available the last day of January, and through Charlie's quick action and working with the owner, they were touring it on February 2nd, and as you can see, the building was under contract on February 8th. Charlie already had an incentive summary back from the Department of Commerce, again, a big partner of ours, by February 17th. But it brings home the point that if we have product, we can move it. And so that's where we're going with our product report. Next slide. This is just a nice story. Small machine shop on Hilton Head. They are going to be expanding by 5 times, but they're working with our school district, in particular the K through 12 on an apprenticeship program. And that's a meeting. You can see Alex Brown meeting with the owner of the company, and we had the school district, we had TCL out there. So again, many partners contribute to our success. Next slide. This is Low Country Concrete. They're now Knights, and you'll see the Knights trucks in town, but we're going to do quite well with them. There'll be 80 good paying jobs out there. Long work week. Just if you know anyone looking for a job, please send them our way. And the way we approach this is one person at a time adds up to 80 jobs. One person at a time adds up to 1,000 jobs. But we want to take care of each individual. Next slide. MRG, we're going to have a groundbreaking for this New Jersey company out in the Commerce Park. So if you look at it, we've had the spec building. This will be lot 15. We'll have this New Jersey company probably in the next, I would say 15 to 30 days breaking ground out there. Next slide. Again, credit to Charlie Stone, working with Commerce. We got a $200,000 grant for site development, and we're building a 25,000 square foot pad out there. And again, Jared and his staff helped us get the roads paved out there. We did get a grant from the Commerce on that as well. And both of these, Dominion Energy contributed combined the road paving and this pad development, or $100,000 in UTC. So the money you're contributing to economic development is being leveraged, and then using the skills of your engineers, we're getting great things done. People who were out at the groundbreaking were impressed that the park looked dramatically different with those paved roads. Next slide. And this is what it looked like, and this is what it now looks like. So thank you, Jared, and your staff, Andrea, and everybody else. Next slide. A Myrtle Business Park, that svelte looking shadow there is me there on the site on the left side there, taking the panoramic picture. Really excited. Eric, it's not that funny. But the site is being developed, so thank you very much. I was out there yesterday taking that shot and wildly excited. I will tell you I'm wildly excited because once that work is done, we close, and your finance committee has agreed to move those proceeds to our site fund, which with all the activity, I'm sometimes wondering if I need to borrow or if we're going to make it, to stay in the black. We're going to stay in the black, but we've got a lot of activity going on. Next slide. We have a pipeline of probably $35 million of near-term projects, so we're excited for the future. Next slide. This is one I want to cover because I'm really pleased to let you know that last week I was in Tucson, Arizona with Sandy Steele of Southern Carolina Alliance. We met with 12 companies, and I know at times our relationship has been confusing and challenging. I will tell you today that our approach and our persistence and their willingness to try to understand what we're looking for, we've made great strides. And I thank council for at times standing up strongly behind us as we've tried to press for performance in this area. But we're doing quite well with the Southern Carolina Alliance today, so thank you. Next slide. The product report, which hopefully council will see, and I think we're going to be with business facilities at some point. I'll just give you a little overview of what our approach has been, but we do have product recommendations. Next slide. Our approach is to look at, a lot of times people talk about transit-oriented development. I look at it, and probably after 18 years with the public utility, look at it as infrastructure development and looking at where communications, electric, gas, transportation, and zoning, and again, working very closely with the planners matters. We kind of break the product plan into short-term, things that we could expect to accomplish in 2 years, medium-term, I think that's 48 months, so 4 years, and also long-term, and we do have recommendations in each of these areas. Next slide. What we do is we in the report we have all this breakdown. It's a little bit of an eye chart. Do not worry about it. We can get each council member a confidential copy of the report. But what we do is we just score them in terms of likelihood of success. I do believe our approach, I know some council folks have been concerned about, like, why haven't we gotten a big ask for funds earlier? But it's my thought that to those who much is given, much is expected. And if we asked for something, we wanted to make sure that we could perform. So I think at this point, we know the market, we know what works in Beaufort County. And I think if you wind it back to all the efforts in economic development, our approach is successful. Your question might be, well, if we scale that up, could we expect more? I do expect conversations about commercial. Our board has been laser focused on industrial. But at the same time, when people do come in for data on healthcare or on hospitality and tourism, we focus on all those areas and work with the administration here at the county and each municipality to make sure people have a good experience in Beaufort County, because we think everyone we speak to is a potential investor. Next slide. And then, so short term, if we were to pursue everything, and you do not have to pursue everything, it's close to, it's 14,400,000. Some of the medium term stuff would be infrastructure, in all likelihood up to the Lebico site, and so that's just a number thrown out there. I do know the administrator is working on actually quantifying cost to bring an infrastructure out there if that was a target that was decided upon. Next slide. Leaving these next slides, there were a lot of questions. The chairman had put out information wondering whether it's workforce and that kind of thing, like where the people are coming from, how far they're driving to, or how many people are leaving the county. So I have a couple of slides up here. Some are dated, but this is a great resource. Mr. Chairman, you may want to just throw some dots as to where you see growth, but it's a dynamic tool that the SC Power team avails to anyone who goes on their website. Next slide. This is a report that it's a more comprehensive report, and we can make this available to whomever. It's a little dated. It probably wouldn't take much to work. Again, the SC Power team had commissioned this report in 2018. I don't think a lot of the principles would have changed, but if there was a desire to refresh it, we can work with council and the administrator to do that. But I'll just show you some of the slides here, and we'll go through these quickly. I just wanted you to know that a lot of the information you're looking for can be found. Next slide. Basically, they look at commuting patterns in the report, and they have a nice executive summary. We won't go into all this detail now. Next slide. They'll show you the different drive patterns. Most people have 20 to 25 minute commute to work in Beaufort County. However, some people will drive further. 45 minutes. And so the next slide, they, I believe, show you where those workers are coming from, which I thought you'd find interesting. And what you can see is about 14, good God, you mind zooming in for my poor eyes? Excuse me. Thank you. Just over 14,000 people are commuting in, and we have 15,500 residents commuting out daily. And this number is 3 years old. You could probably assume it may have increased by 5 to 10%. Next slide. And then this just showed within that drive time how the demographics compare to the state average. So that line in the middle shows population growth. As we know, Beaufort and Jasper are fast-growing areas, Beaufort County. Participation rate in terms of being involved in the labor market, we're higher than the state average. Median age, we are higher. And then medium household income, we are higher. So next slide. And then underemployed, our numbers are lower than the state, but it actually showed that there were nearly 10,000 potential target workers within that 45-minute drive that were underemployed. And so hopefully we're creating more possibilities for people to be fully employed. But I just showed you these slides very quickly so you knew that some of this data could be obtained fairly quickly. And next slide. And these get into the questions. I'll try to answer those quickly. How am I doing for time? Maybe 5 minutes too long?
You're doing good.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Okay, so A is for you to answer, leading, and you have commercial development, but we've been, obviously Low Country Fresh Market is commercial development. Our board is really focused on light industrial, healthcare, and the targets that I showed you earlier. I hope you are pleased, but if you're not, we definitely would love that feedback, or if there's areas you want us to focus on, we can take critical feedback and would welcome it. In terms of how we're doing with the Southern Carolina Regional Alliance, SCA, I think that you should be pleased that our collective approach is bearing some fruit now. And just like I would expect you to hold our toes to the fire in terms of performance, we have to continue to do that with SCA in the most polite and professional way, and I think we can do that. Successes, I think our numbers are successes. I would say, you know, our failure somewhat, you know, and I don't mean to make excuses, but we had great momentum coming into the pandemic, and that's been frustrating. But I think you could and should expect more from us, and we try to increase our metrics each year. I will say on product development, again, it's probably a failure, right? Because I know in particular Councilmember Rodman and Councilmember Glover have been after us to deliver a product report, a larger ask and a bigger plan. That's tempered by making sure if we were to ask for more, that we could deliver, and also tempered by the product plan really was ready to be delivered prior to the pandemic. But while government entities weren't sure what that would do to revenues, that's the wrong time to be asking for, while people are struggling for a dream or a big financial ask. So in terms of failures, I would say if you look at that Mira example, Mira Foods, that took the building at 20 Eleanor Fine, basically they were under contract 8 days after the building was available. I would say the fact that we don't have more inventory to sell hurts us. I would say, I'll say this is a failure of mine and ours, or something maybe we could have done better, but we're making great progress today with the Marine Corps. We're now in their monthly meetings to make sure that we're selling, staying in the area, and filling jobs to exiting Marines. We're doing better there. Let's just see, in terms of failures, some of the relationship stuff that took us till this point to resolve is probably a failure. And I think you can always look back at something and say, what could I do to improve? And then let's see. Oh, digging for failures. I would have to say maybe just identifying products sooner was probably it as well. But in terms of are the entities working as we would like, I think our legal and our engineering relationship has really progressed really well. On financial stuff, we're just got to figure out where we are with the mill set aside, or quarter mill, or something, because it appears like in your budgets the last 2 years, we have been budgeting at .27 of a mill was set aside for site and job funds, but it appears in the past 2 years that's been lowered to 0.2, but it wasn't, we didn't know about it until last week, so we'll resolve that. I think there are ways we can make up those gaps. So just better communication. I will say this, that with Eric's leadership and stability, it's just going to be a better time if we can just stay the course and keep things going the way they are right now. So I think we're working really well. I would say if council members, those here in the room, or those who are joining virtually, if they feel like they don't know what we're working on, perhaps that's part of our relationship we could strengthen. Even the chair, might have been surprised that we've made such great progress with SCA. So probably communication is something we could always do better. And new initiatives, I would say let's look at the product report in earnest and figure out which parts and which pieces of it could fit into a financial framework that council would be comfortable with, because I don't think it's like Field of Dreams. If we build it, they will come, and we're dreaming. I think we know that if we have product, we can sell it. And the last thing I'll say is, and I'm quoting Chris Fisher from Glassworks, who says this area reminds him of Charleston 30 years ago. And what's neat about that is that I do think we're poised for growth. I have an economist who lives on Hilton Head who says you're sitting on a rocket. The key for all of us as planners, as council members, as administrators, and economic development is to do it in a way where we keep the scale and perhaps avoid the congestion that is Charleston today, and do it in a way that we can all be proud of. And, in the first page, and I'm wrapping up, but the first page of our product report, my son shared this quote with me. I know he didn't write it, but it's wise men plant trees whose shade they know they'll never sit under. And that's where you are with economic development. I know a lot of people looked at the Commerce Park as as a failure. But as you can see, when you do something 30 or 20 years in advance, future generations can enjoy it and find a livelihood right in the community they want to live in. And I think that's it. Our last one. Hopefully you all know how to get in touch with Charlie and I, and if we need to communicate more, just let us know where to be, and we'll be happy to be there. But I'd be happy to take questions.
I would encourage council members to make an appointment to see the latest and greatest what's happening at Commerce Park. I think that's essential for us to see some of the kinds of things, visit you at your office to talk to you.
Yeah.
Alice, comments?
I had two questions. One about Myra Foods. I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm not aware of what their product's gonna be. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's food products, and they're New Jersey originally. They have operations. They live in California, and it's food distribution. I believe it's named after the owner's sister, who's Miriam, but it's Mira, which in Spanish means look. And I believe that they have a lot of dry products that they distribute, I think largely in the Latino community markets throughout the U.S. And they're actually in conversations with Seaside Grown about potentially doing work with them. So that's the other neat piece that Charlie does, is that when he finds a company, he also finds another company they can work with. And then South Carolina Department of Commerce also has a great system called Source SC, so we can find local co-packers to help them execute their business.
The Sandy, when she did a brief for the technical college board, talked about the company that's coming, I think, to Hampton County with the hypo. Is there going to be any connection between those two, the hypo horticulture?
Potentially. I mean, they're still coming out of the ground, so there'll be a lot there. Sandy and I, we spoke to another big farming concern, one of these technological farming concerns, Sandy and I, when we were in Arizona last week. So that is a great project, not only for Hampton, but for the region, to demonstrate the rich agricultural roots we have here and opportunities we have here. You should know there's a little bit of tension from and I think somebody had asked it about housing, but from people who've been farming here forever, and then people are coming in from away. We always have to make sure any incentives we're doing look like they're equal to both those people who've been paying taxes and want to invest in the community they love, and people coming from away.
Well, one other question. What do you feel like the cybersecurity that we're both involved in is going to be a viable, high-paying? I
do.
Okay.
I absolutely
do. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, and it really should have been in our presentation. Well, the first thing that Warren Parker has done is he's brought $160,000 of resources to our economic development organization through the Department of Defense grant he got. And we're very appreciative of that. And then within that, and we've had examples of it, we had a young man earlier this year working at the Digital Corridor who was living in Baltimore and raising a family there, and 2 blocks down, he heard gunshots, and it was not a great outcome. He moved down here, he's able to work remotely, and we're gonna see that more and more. I don't know if you're familiar, but Savannah has a thing where if you're a tech worker and move to Savannah, they'll pay your first month's rent or mortgage. But the thing is that the K through 12 program, the Digital Corridor, TCL, and USCB have to just create a pipeline, and then we'll be able to attract. Within our budget, we have $36,000 allocated for lead generation, specifically in cyber, and we'll get in front of companies that are looking to have a footprint in the area. And again, last week in Arizona, we met with one consultant who advises a Texas company on where to locate, and we're plugging him in through our contacts with the Marine Corps on some defense cyber work that's available. But it's going to bear fruit. It's a great niche that Warren has identified, and we both have the pleasure of being affiliated with. I think Augusta, Georgia, provides a good example, and you've been up there to see that.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on the question Ms. Howard asked about the agricultural investment in Hampton County. And they're moving in a direction of for the future. One of the things that we're doing at the Gullah Farmers Co-op is doing the same thing on a smaller scale. Collaboratively, we're looking at farmers, landowners who are looking at putting in greenhouses, hoop houses to do the same thing. So it's going to be a good marriage. We have right now with the Gullah farmers in this area, we have about 2-3 years before those folks get on board. So hopefully we can get into there and get a market established before they come on board, because it'll be competitive and challenging. But the thing that we have is we're looking at a regional market versus they're looking at a national market. I just want to comment on Mr. O'Toole's approach to economic development. I like how you're looking at diversity. You're keeping small business as well as approaching large business. And when you start looking at changing in jobs, economic development, it's good to have of diversity, so that you're not, if you're like the military is all of a sudden move away from Beaufort being a major. But if we can continue to have a mixture of small as well as large businesses, that's going to be a very rich enhancement for this area. So I just want to commend you on that approach.
Well, small and mid-size allows you to diversify your portfolio. So if you have one hit to a Boeing, it can have a dramatic effect on the economy. If you look at, my wife got me a copy, a subscription to Kiplinger's, and they're saying small to mid-size investing is where the growth's going to occur. It's been our philosophy, and it really works in Beaufort, because when we bring in a small company, we haven't aggravated any neighbors. I think, I had one person ask me why we didn't get a Wayfair distribution facility in Beaufort, and it probably would have been the last. I would have gotten a $1.1 million square foot facility, but I probably would have been ridden out of Beaufort on a rail if I brought in a facility. And when Eric was the planner, one time we had a project that wanted to run 150 18-wheelers, 150 18-wheelers onto a site daily. And I was inclined to say, no, Labico would not be a good site for that. But I ran it by Eric and he confirmed, and I ran it by Gerald Dawson, whose district it was in, and we all had the same inclination that it is not a good fit. One perspective thing that we are looking at and having conversations, thanks to Paul and the leadership up in Yamasee, is looking at some Chilton property that was looked at by a previous iteration of economic development in Beaufort County. It's like 836 acres with rail access, but we're having conversations about not a $27 million project, but more of a bite-sized approach to help that developer repurpose that formerly forestry property. And we're doing that with the council in Yamasee's guidance.
Any other questions? Any questions from
John?
those online?
Yes, Gerald.
Go ahead,
John,
Mr. Dawson.
this is Gerald. First of all, I want to thank you for the report and giving us a detailed update on economic development. To your point, Beaufort has struggled for the last 15, 20 years as far as trying to make some progress in the economic development arena. I just want to take this opportunity to actually commend you and the CDC for your efforts in recruitment and job creation throughout Beaufort County, from Hilton Head all the way down to Yamasee. You guys are doing a good job, in my opinion. And we, the council, we should be proud of the accomplishments you have made as far as bringing jobs and businesses to Beaufort County. And then you just received the award. So we are proud of you and the CDC being recognized for your accomplishments. So I say congratulations. Just keep up the good works.
Thank you.
Any other comments? John, thank you very much.
Stu here.
Go ahead, Stu.
Yeah, two comments for John. One is the guy that owns PC Matic currently lives in Myrtle Beach, and I know he's doing some work with the state. So I'm sure if Commerce has not talked to you about that, it may be a conversation that you want to have with them, or I could fill you in on some background. Secondly, as I've looked at economic development in the northern part of the county, the Boeings and the Volvos of the world typically like to have what they call their tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, maybe 100 miles away, so that they get a good benefit of wages, but at the same time, it works well for the supply chain. And those kind of places are typically going to be in the 100 to 150 acre types of products. And I don't know whether we should or shouldn't, or whether the area does or doesn't want that kind of an industry. But if we do, it's the type of thing that is attractive because we have lower tax rates than the surrounding counties, and it's not necessarily a spec building because you got to have it where it's kind of ready to go, but not built. So I always just raise that as to something, whether the people in the northern part of the county want that kind of a facility or don't, but I think we would be very competitive if we did. Thank you.
I would, if I could, I would agree with what Stu's saying. I'd love to get with the council, whichever committee you deem appropriate, and bite into this. I'd love to share the 4 different approaches we're discussing with Chilton on their property and make sure we're in sync. The key to our success really is, one, staying humble, but two, making sure that anything we bring forward, we're in sync with this council or a town council or a city council, and make sure that we know what we're talking about when we're speaking to investors. But to Stu's point, and we reiterated this numerous times with about 12 different prospects in Arizona, is that the proximity to the Volvos, to the Boeings, to the Gulfstreams is very attractive, and yet you're out of their compensation orbit, you're out of their tax orbit, and you're not competing with them on benefits and that kind of thing. So the area is attractive for exactly what Stu is mentioning, and we just need to decide where that should occur. And I would encourage planning to be involved in those discussions as well, because we emphasize all the time simple, swift, and certain when we bring somebody to a community.
And those types of plants, if you have one or two of them, spawn a lot of spin-off businesses that will be attracted to the area. And they're also attractive in the sense that they can serve three markets, whatever's here, what's in Charleston, and what's in Savannah. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John.
Mr. Chairman, one quick, I need to say this. Mr. O'Toole, thank you for working out the relationship between Carolina Alliance. I'm glad you were able to work that out. I look to you because you're closer to me for economic development. So I'm glad you were able to work out that relationship with the Southern Carolina Alliance and stuff. So I just want to say that.
Well, they
You don't need to respond.
No, I will, because I appreciate their patience in sticking with us to understand what we were looking for as well. And I'll quote Larry Hughes, who's passed away but used to live in Bluffton, and I think he borrowed it from Teddy Roosevelt, but he goes, nobody cares about what you know until they know you care. And once we got to that point, everything's gone very smoothly. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
So I will brief you all. We're going to take a break here because lunch is here. It's in the what we call the baby ECR, which is a little room beside the ECR. If you, or what Sarah calls the baby ECR. So anyway, the rest of you online can take a break. We'll see you all back around 1 o'clock.
Okay, very good. Okay, we'll recess the meeting till 1 o'clock.
We end this Zoom and you have to join again.
Okay, no
So
problem.
do we cut ourselves off of the Zoom now?
You can log back in.
Okay.
Okay.